So today's topic, we're going to talk about soul retrieval. Soul retrieval is a technique that, as far as I know, originates with Native American or indigenous tribes. It may not just be Native American, but with tribes around the world that use the more native medicine, like shamanism, um, that sort of thing. I call it all shamanism if it's kind of earth magic, earth healing. Excuse me. And so when I've experienced it with a Native American, how they did it was, or the concept of it is, let me start with that. The concept of it is that when we are in traumatic experiences, or in just, it could be a power play or a frightening experience, we oftentimes will lose or we'll get a fraction of our soul will split off. We'll have fractured soul pieces, and we lose energy. And we see that even in power plays where we're turning over our energy and our autonomy to someone else. But it can happen through these other types of experiences. So if you've been, the victim of a crime, or had, maybe a natural disaster, something like that, in that moment of trauma, we lose a lot of energy, but some of that remains gone. I mean, we lose it and we don't keep that part of our energetic self intact. And so, so it can be that it's lost, or it could be just diminished or covered up. So, for instance, the clients that I've had, I had a client who came to me because she said she'd been in this, decades long marriage, and that she had lost her independence. And so soul retrieval was the technique that I used. And in doing this, we went back to the moment where she gave that up. And it happened to be that she actually consciously pushed that aside when she got married. She decided that when she got married, she would no longer have her independence. And so we were able to find that energetic mass in her bedroom, actually, as she was leaving to go get married. She said, "I set it right here on the table." Um, and so during the session, we were able to go back and locate it. In her case, she wasn't quite ready to actually reintegrate that into her. So that's part of the process, is that reintegration. So let me back up just a moment, in that the typical way that it is done might be exemplified by the experience that I had. So I met with a Native American practitioner, shaman, when I was living in Ohio. So we met in this space that he had rented. He had simply come to town as a guest, and he was doing sessions with people locally. And I would describe it as a warehouse, and that can conjure just all sorts of images, but it was just a big empty space that, could really hold a lot of storage but it was empty, kind of a cement floor, whatever. And he had a blanket down and, feathers and crystals and all of that, ceremonial, those ceremonial things that were there with him, laid out. And so the process that is typically or traditionally facilitated is that in this case, he had me lay down on this blanket, and then he laid down with me and actually spooned behind me, which was very odd. and alarming. He had pants on, but he was shirtless. He was doing the native thing and he spooned behind me. And so I'm, thinking, okay, what's this? Um, and he did the journey. So for him, he went out in his imagination, connecting with the cosmos, however he was trained to do it. And he went and he found these pieces of my soul that had been fractured off. And he brought them back and re-implanted them, or so he said. I mean, this is just what he told me afterwards. So for about, I want to say 40 minutes to an hour, we were laying there in this position, and I'm just wondering really what's happening and how long will it last, right? And just laying there, trying, obviously I was trying to connect in, but the usual client in this case, what are they going to do? They're just going to lay there and have this happen. So anyway, I mean, it was all respectful, but it was, odd. um, so, so anyway, at the end, he said, okay, well, I found this piece and that piece, and this was from another lifetime, and this was from here or there. And none of it really made a whole lot of sense to me. It was just like, oh, okay. So you're kind of trusting that practitioner to know what they're doing, to do it properly, to have any idea about it. Um, and so then he said, okay, well, that's it. So that was it. So over the years, had been doing past life regression and all this other work. And then when I added all of the hypnotherapy techniques to my toolbox, one of the things that would come up in my sessions were clients that would have something missing out of their lives. Innocence, freedom, independence, creativity, different aspects of themselves, or they were in a situation of loss of power, turning that power over to someone else. And I started thinking back about my experience with soul retrieval and thinking, well, this is really the same kind of thing. So I evolved that technique to be able to use it within a hypnotherapy session. So rather than the rattles and drums and all the other things that would be happening, it's really done in my office like any other kind of hypnotherapy technique. We go into this soul retrieval. And for me, of course, my goal and mission has always been to help people with raising their consciousness. So, creating, um, more awareness for them rather than just me doing the work and saying, okay, now you're fine. Um, really engaging them in the work so that they're a part of it. They know what has been lost. They go and retrieve, they go and locate it, they retrieve it, and then decide what they're going to do with it. And then we can also do some healing around, discovery and healing around what is it that um, caused this to happen, right? And how can this person strengthen in other ways so that it doesn't happen again? And how can we reintegrate this piece back into their soul energy in a way that is going to be um, seamlessly useful. A lot of times when we have an abrupt change, when we do, as in the kind of hypnotherapy work that we do, there are, significant changes that happen within an hour. And so we have to prepare our clients for going out into the world now and maintaining that new, in this case, that new energetic piece, maintaining it within their greater soul, and not losing it again or not diminishing it, or whatever might happen there. So there's a lot of work that goes around that really supports the client. Um, and just as another example, um, I had a client, a man who was very, very creative, and and he was struggling with that. Now he stayed very much in his left brain, analytical side, and even doing the hypnotherapy work, he had a really hard time switching over to that right side imagination, which was really hampering our ability to have, the kind of success that we really could have within the session. And so we talked about the creativity part and the imagination. And in his case, he said he lost it early on because he was maybe 4 or 5 and he had made this drawing for his father, for the refrigerator or whatever. And he was so excited and he came in and he showed the drawing to his father. And he just put it down, it wasn't good enough, all of that, all of the criticism about this drawing. And so at that point, he decided that he was simply going to not be creative, that it was too embarrassing, it was too degrading to have people critique the things that were coming out of his imagination. So imagine we had a, a big amount of, a pretty significant amount of work that we needed to do in order to reincorporate that and really get him comfortable with, uh, you know, moving into that right brain and allowing that imagination to roam freely. But, of course, that is what really helped his sessions. But then, of course, he could also go and do some artwork. He really loved it. He really loved being creative. It's just that there was that huge block. But we were able to incorporate that. Um, Back to the story about the woman who got married and lost her independence. I don't know if I mentioned that. Maybe I did. She said she was not ready to reincorporate it, which was interesting because if you have um, someone else doing the work to you, for you, how do they know, right? So they, like the Native American would just think, oh, I'm going to go get this energy and I'm going to bring it back and we're going to reincorporate that in whatever way they do. But in this case, I asked her, what do you want to do with this? Thinking, because I'd never had this happen before, thinking that she would just, be happy to incorporate that since that was what she was coming to me to work on. And we had found it, we could do it. And she said, I'm really not quite ready to do that because she said, if I incorporate that right now, I'm going to go home and ask my husband for a divorce. And I really need to get my ducks in a row before I go do that. So she said, I don't want it today. So we left it where it was and we knew where it was. And I said, okay, well, go take care of your business. And when you're ready, come back and we'll finish the work. So, so that's how that went, so that's what we did. Has anyone here experienced some version of soul retrieval? Why don't you unmute and tell us a little bit about what your experience was like?
I went to a shaman and she has a bear. And so we went through a process where I picked a card first and we talked a little bit about what the card meant. And I laid down next to her on top of blankets and I had the bear on top of me. And so she was next to me. So our shoulders.
Not a live bear,
Oh,
right?
no,
Or
no, no. It
energetic.
was the skin. It was the skin of a real bear.
Bear skin.
It
I
was
had
her.
a live bear at my front door three or four nights ago.
Wow. Wow. That's
I have a video
cool.
from Ring about that. Anyway, go ahead. So the bear
So
skin
we were laying down next to each other with our shoulders, our arms, and our legs touching.
Mhm.
And so I don't know, it was a half hour to an hour long. and she picked up a lot of information. She then told me some of the things that she had discovered, and I took notes. And she said, like, I want you to ladder, find the symbolism, what the ladder going upwards means to you, and what these different symbols mean. And then I ended up journaling that night, just automatic writing. Thought I'd do it for an hour. It turned out to be like 6 hours of just typing. And I was shocked to see what time it was. And then she said, and then we're going to choose a date where we tune in, and then I'm going to go on the journey by myself.
Huh.
So it was the second event where she tuned in with me. Um, and then she made more discoveries, and then we met after that, and we reviewed everything that was going on. So that's how I learned a lot about where I had been in the healing arts through all my lives, and each time I was shut down because she would see these lights, these stars in the sky, and they would be very, very bright, and all of a sudden woof, when they diminish almost very quickly because I had been killed off in all these lifetimes. and
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and so she was just saying it was the same soul over and over and over again. And so she was able to come up with some detail, um, which was very interesting. And I have since then been able to build on some of that and gain a little more knowledge. But um, I would love to do that process again, actually.
Yeah. Um, so okay, so that it's another example of how it would be traditionally done.
She was a shaman,
Mhm.
um, doesn't know hypnosis, so it was definitely a
Right.
different process.
Yeah. So even though that they are kind of using hypnosis or self-hypnosis, going into a trance state,
Well, the drum is going to put you
right?
into the trance state.
Well, right. But that work, when people are doing that kind of work, they're typically in a trance state
Hmm,
in
hmm,
order to travel and to do all of those things.
hmm.
But here, the client is in the trance state and actually discovering and doing the work themselves. So that's where the difference comes in is the people who are doing it for themselves. Anybody else have experienced a soul retrieval? Yes, Arya? Oh,
It wasn't unmuting. I think
hi.
I remember.
In the
Hey,
longest time.
I know, yeah. I
Good.
remember we did some in your coursework, but that's been so long. I kind of remember combining. I thought we maybe, and I've kind of done this with a couple people, clients, combining soul journey with soul retrieval. So you kind of go on the boat and then just go into different places and then discover what parts are missing and bringing them back. So
Oh,
wasn't sure if that's how we did it or
yeah. I
I
mean,
don't remember.
that's an interesting way to combine those two techniques is to start with the journey and then have the soul retrieval be part of it. Absolutely. I hadn't thought about that. That's pretty creative. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, very interesting.
I,
Okay.
yeah, I thought that I remember doing that once, but maybe it was a little bit different. But yeah, I've
Yeah. The
liked.
yeah, the soul retrieval itself would be a standalone,
Mhm.
uh, not necessarily with the journey. What else
Yeah.
would you say?
Oh, I was just gonna say I found it like helpful too, just to bring them a little bit deeper and then inviting their guides along with the process.
Hmm. Actually, that would be, yeah, that's a great way of introducing that and then doing that work once you arrive someplace, along the journey. And that's very clever. Okay, I might incorporate that. I love getting new
Yeah.
ideas.
I
Yeah.
haven't done it a lot though, but that's kind of the one time I did. I kind of did it that way, and it seemed to be effective.
Yeah, yeah, using the journey sort of like a deepening, an induction and deepening to get them there and then
Yeah.
into it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have another training coming up. The 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 spiritual exploration training is now online, And you can register for it anytime because it's online. You can go all the way through and get certified. But then when I have enough clients gathered up, then I will, or enough students, then I will have some dates for the live Zoom calls. So that training has soul retrieval, journeys, communicating with spirit guides. We have actually quite an extended education on the different kinds of entities that are out there, where they reside, how they operate, their different classifications and qualities, which is really unique information. And what else? We work with, you know, what happens if someone is possessed, you know, if there's an entity possession, which happens, at least in my office, frequently enough. I think if a practitioner has no knowledge of that, then they say, well, I never have that in my office, but that's because they wouldn't recognize it if they did have it. But anytime that someone has had a lot of trauma, abuse, or addictions in their life, which is quite a lot of people, you're probably going to find that there's also some entity attachments, whether they're just influencing or attached, but there's like 7 layers of attachment all the way to possession. So there's different ways that that can happen. And it happens to everybody sometimes throughout our lives. We'll have entity influences and or possession. But most of the time it isn't a real interference. So we don't either know about it or don't deal with it. But then sometimes it is pretty distinct. But then the other thing in the training that we're going to cover is working with ETs, extraterrestrials, and UFOs, what they are, who they are, and how to handle it, and some stories. So, yeah, Aria?
What about working with the learning how to, you know, undo any kind of entities from yourself? Like if you in your program or in your training, is there, you know, because if we do have maybe 1 or 2 or 3 levels and we have like, you know, what we feel is like something that's in us that's maybe not us, can we learn how to just remove that ourselves instead of just on clients?
Yeah, I mean, the knowledge that you would have would give you that, you know, the knowledge to do it. And of
The
course, with the
tools.
therapy tools, you'll have the tools as well. Um, some entities we can get off of ourselves, and some are going to take a whole lot more work, and then some are way beyond our pay grade. There are some that you know, many that I won't work with, I won't touch, because I'm not equipped for the really heavy duty ones either. So but you'll have the knowledge about it and resources. Yeah.
And is past life regression part of it too?
No, past life is now part of the hypnotherapy
Oh,
programs.
mhm.
So hypnotherapy and past life regression, and then the spiritual exploration is a separate one, which, because I've added so much to it, it just became a whole body of work on its own. And it
Yeah.
just all that, you know, into that deeper spiritual realms.
Mhm.
So anyway, does anybody have questions about soul retrieval? How about, let's ask, or you can either put in the message box or, you know, over here in the chat, if there's something that you think is missing from you, like if you think you've given away, oh, and we do need to talk about giving away power. I'm just making a note, but is there something that you think, you know, creativity, freedom, something that feels like, you know, a lot of times people are, you know, and some of it, I guess it just feels like blocks sometimes, like no matter what you do to market yourself, it feels like there's a bushel barrel that is covering up your light. If you remember the old children's song or poem or whatever that was. Maybe I'm too old for this crowd. I don't know. But like something's covering your light, or that's diminished, or has been taken away from you. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Anything that, yeah, independence after the trauma of mom's death. Interesting. Um, Gina, are you at work again, so you can't talk, or could you come on and talk?
I can talk. Yeah.
Oh, you can show your picture too. We'd love to see you. I always love to see people's faces, but do you want to talk a little bit about that? Like, what happened to your independence, or did you put it aside, or we can't hear you?
Let's see. Yeah. So yeah, I pretty much put it aside. This was about in 2015. Just like I was there when my mom passed away. And I think just seeing that and having that experience, it really, made me question, like, what is, life all about if it just ends this way? And I've always been, just a fighter to try to create my world, my focus on my job, focus on my own home. And when she passed away, I had been taking care of her for like 2 years. I was like, I didn't want to try anymore. I was just so taken aback by the experience. And I think my work suffered. It led into leaving a job I was at for 8 years. I moved in with my sister because I just became a zombie. I was functional, but just spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, it took me to a place that, I'm still even working on recovering from, right? And making progress, but it's like 5 years. So to your point, I don't know, was it a possession? I feel like I did kind of like check something of myself at that point, where I'm like, this isn't worth it, or this is meaningless, or I'm really going to have to be inspired to really try to fight as much as I had pre-mom's death and now post-mom's death. It was just,
Huh.
yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah, that could be a combination with entity issues too, because of all the trauma, because they'll also drain you of your energy, and and whisper negative things, and kind of bring that down like that. Um, so, but the part that you can manage perhaps is retrieving that independence back again, if you choose to, retrieving those parts of you, so that that energy is more available to you and functioning, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And I have been, like, this year, definitely making choices that will help me move toward that direction. So, but just wanted to share that, man, it can happen. It can hit you really hard for a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah, I know, and it's hard to, it's for me. I mean, I haven't had it for that long, but if you have a period of depression, it's like being at the bottom of the well, and you're just trying to, climb up without a rope or something. Um, I have like mini versions of that. I just noticed, like when the sun comes out, it's like I thought I was doing fine, and then the sun comes out, and it feels like, oh no, I've been really in a ditch somewhere all winter with the clouds and rain and everything. Um, but yeah, so yeah, that could easily be taken care of, could be switched around actually quite fast with hypnotherapy, soul retrieval, checking for entities, making sure all of that is clear. Um, yeah, so if you ever want to do that, either with me or somebody else, I have resources. So
Oh yeah, I
um,
forgot about that community. I haven't been on there. I forgot about that community.
yeah, no, it's been a long time since you did the training, but yeah, that community is available to you, or, I could work with you, but that's going to be the least expensive,
Yeah, yeah, totally.
the more affordable pathway would
Yeah.
be back on the soulful hypnotherapy community. If you have trouble getting back in there, just let me know. I'll send you a link.
Okay.
But you should still be a member. Um,
Yeah.
But I have all sorts of students coming through my trainings, and they need to practice while they're going through the training. And a lot of them, for a month or two after, are still looking for practice partners to, get things, to really hone their skills. So
Mhm.
you might find various people that would love to work with you.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Anybody else have a comment or a question about the technique or the benefits? Of course, the benefits is to having all of your energy again, to having all those resources to you, that you have, having them functional and available to you, and not scattered around, whether it's an attitude or a skill or a piece of that energy. So no more questions? We could have a short day today. I don't know if there was anything else I was going to talk to you about. Yeah, I've given you examples. Yeah, you did.
So what are your thoughts about people having a second soul retrieval?
A second soul retrieval?
Yeah. So
Not at all.
I would assume that based on whatever the person has already processed, new stuff might come up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think, there would be no contraindication that I could think of,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
reason why you couldn't do it.
Mhm.
And doing it this way may give you more insight. And even if they did that work, you see, the thing that I get concerned about with the way that the shamans do it is that, because nothing has been corrected in you. So let's
Well,
say,
she was also a Reiki master, so we actually did a lot of work.
right,
Yeah.
but did your behaviors change? Did your perspective of things, did the power plays change? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Well,
the
some things
difference.
did, yeah, because some things did for sure.
Right. But that's part of the issue when somebody else does the work for you, right? So if you go in and you do it this way, you're going to be able to see where that is, what the weakness is, what needs to be worked on, and we do the work around that so that, um, significant changes are happening.
Well, I was doing the work because I was given the homework to put the
Oh,
drumming
good.
on myself and then do the work. So
Mhm.
that actually started quite an intense process of work.
Yeah,
So
transformation. Well,
yeah.
and good. And then, if you were to go in there, obviously, if you were to request that, it would mean that, something is still out there that
Mhm.
feels like it needs to be retrieved. Even if she retrieved 5 things, there could be
Mhm.
another dozen. We've had millions of lifetimes
Mhm.
to have things happen to us where we give away that energy or get fractured.
Mhm.
Uh, and so, um, there's always room for more exploration and
Mhm.
retrieval. Yeah. And there'd be no reason why not to do another
Mhm.
one. Yeah,
Okay.
not at all. We wouldn't undo the work she did, because
No,
it's
no.
done. So we'd be just adding on top of that. Yeah, good question though. Um, Anybody else have questions about the technique, about their own situation? No. Okay. I must have explained it well. Um, like I said, I have that training. I also have, the original hypnotherapy and past life regression training that is all online. You can get your complete certification online. But the phone calls, the Zoom calls that go with that start on Saturday, May 8th, and will go for 7 weeks. And so if you're interested in getting your certification or getting that training, you're welcome to jump in anytime and then join us in the calls. And then the nice part is that, forever you can come back and take the calls again. So if 6 months down the line, you think, oh, I could use a brush up, or, I'm still struggling with this one technique or something, you just let me know. And as long as we have room in the class, you get to repeat the class. And of course, the online training is up there for you for your whole life. So, or as long, for my whole life, for as long as I'm keeping it up there. So, so that's nice. So it's a great investment in your career. So if you have any questions about that, I can answer them now, or we can get on the phone call. And yes, Cataluna, you're enrolled, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm super excited. Yes.
I'm excited too.
Yeah. I was wondering, are we going to be in the hypnotherapy training? Are we going to do any soul retrieval, or is that totally the separate course?
It's a separate course.
Okay.
Yeah. Homework, huh?
Maybe do both. Yeah.
We'll be doing a lot though. There's like 10 or there's between 12 and 20 techniques you're going to be learning. So you're going to just be getting this incredible body of work. And then later you can take the other course. Once you've taken one or the other, you get a nice discount for the other one. So if you take this one, then when you go to take that one, you'll get a nice discount. So yeah, maybe we'll see you in that class too. Good. Any other questions? Not today. Okay. Well, thank you all for showing up today, to being here, being present. So wonderful to see all your faces. Hi, Danny. I haven't seen you in a while either. Good to see you here. And so anyway, we will see you next week. I don't know what our topic will be, but we'll figure out something really fun. Does anybody have a suggestion for a topic? What would you like me to talk about? Because I can talk about a lot of things.
I would love hearing about astrology.
Oh, we can talk about astrology next time. What would you like to know about astrology?
Well, in particular, everything, but I know that Uranus on the full moon is going to be very, some unexpected for all of us for this full moon in Scorpio. So I was wondering about that.
Okay, so our talk is next. The next one, Wednesday, the 28th. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be after but that's fine. Anything to do with astrology.
Okay. We'll do some basics on astrology. We can do that. Aria,
on that note, I was just learned about Vedic astrology, that it somebody had this powerful kind of, it's more like psychic stuff, and I was like, wow, what is this Vedic astrology? I don't know if you know anything about it, but I was like, wow, I'm always interested in, because I'm a psychic and a tarot reader, I'm always interested in astrology linked to psychic, and like, because I'm always fascinated about what's psychic, what's blueprints, and if astrology can tell that,
yeah, it can tell quite a bit. So I practice Western astrology, which is kind of the astrology we all know. And then Vedic astrology originates in India. The chart looks a little different. And in Vedic, not all of us, but most people will find that their signs shift backwards by one sign, unless you're really deep into your sign. Then it might just shift to earlier in your sign. So there's a little bit of a shift that happens. How I use Vedic, I have a friend who does both, which is really fascinating, because she can talk to me about Western, but she's given me readings in Vedic. And I use the Vedic astrology more for the soul reading. It really is more ethereal and more on a soul level. And I use Western, and I don't know how to do it, so I would have that reading done for me. But I use Western astrology more for understanding the personality, understanding the events today, the energies we're working with, that kind of thing, using the transits. Because Western is what I've studied all these years. I just didn't want to take on another body of astrology thing to start up with the Vedic. I'd rather just pay somebody and have them do a reading for me than to get too far into it. But there are some interesting aspects about it. And it does, have you had a reading in Vedic yet?
Not in Vedic. I just kind of read this story about this person who had these powerful experience, like it told her future blueprints of like who she was going to be with and what year she was going to marry, and it all came true. And so I was like, wow, does Vedic astrology really tell like your future blueprints of? That's interesting to me.
Yeah, I haven't had that experience. I've had, very good predictive astrology, but not anything quite like that.
Can
But
Western astrology then be predictive at all? Like,
yeah, oh yeah. It'll tell you the, predict the energies, the confluences of energies and how that'll affect you. On that same note, when I was in India, I went to get an astrology reading by a very unique. Actually, I didn't get the reading. I went there because this astrologer had access to something, their leaves, and something. It has a name, and I'd have to find my one little document to figure out the name of it. But something like Bodhi leaves or something like that. Just some kind of there's a name to it, but it's a leaf, and they take your fingerprint, your birthday, your name, and they send it. I was up in New Delhi when I did this, and then they send it down to, I think it was Kerala, in the south of the country. And there is evidently some library there that has these leaves of millions of people, I guess. This is what I hear, that all these people, uh, not everybody has one, but it has the story of your soul written on this leaf. And so I was there. I was in New Delhi because I was speaking at a conference on past life regression. And so, everybody there was into past lives, and we were all talking, and they were telling me about these readings that they had gotten. And so that's why I was like, yes, I have to have this. Well, unfortunately, the guy that I talked to didn't have, he said, I have a leaf, but he said, I have to send to Kerala for it. Can you come back in 2 weeks? And I was like, no, I'm leaving town in 2 days. Right. And then it's really impossible or very difficult to communicate with people, on this level all the way from India. I would have to travel back there again and get this reading done. But I thought it would almost be worth going back to India to see what the leaf says, because the people that I talked to at this conference, they were saying things like that the leaf said what their name was going to be in this lifetime. And it was, who they were going to marry, talked about their past lives, what their purpose was, what their,
wow.
like all this detail. And I thought, yeah, wow. Because the leaves they said these leaves are centuries old or something. It's not like they were even written this week. So I don't know. I don't know.
Sounds similar to the Akashic records.
Like that, but a physical thing. Yeah,
Wow.
it is the Akashic. Well, like what the people talk about the
Oh.
Akashic, but it's actually a thing that they can pull out and read to you. So it's crazy. Yeah.
You had your leaf read, or did you
No,
do your fingerprint?
I went, I gave them all the information and my fingerprint, and the money, to do it. But he said it'll take 2 weeks. And I had some contacts in India, and I asked one friend, I said, could you go? Because he was going to order it up. And I said, could you go over there and get it for me, or take a picture, or, however it is that we're going to access this. And no response. So, it's half a world away, and they have a different lifestyle. It's, not high stress, high activity like we are here. So yeah, so just no, never happened.
Mm.
So Let's do a road trip, you guys. Let's go to India and get our leaves read.
Yeah, post it on
That'd be
your
awesome.
letter. We'll go with you.
We'd
Yeah.
have to be there 2 weeks then, right?
Well, I still have the contact information. You know, when I went to India, you know, we couldn't just pick up the phone and call people. And, you know, it was, you know, $1,000 to have a conversation. Now it's so much easier because we could get on Zoom. We could talk to these people and, you know, and try to make this arrangement. Certainly if we were taking a group over there, they'd probably have the leaves all ready for us because, you know, they would just probably have you get a fingerprint or a thumbprint, whatever it is they need, and we could ship all of that to them in advance. But not everybody had a leaf either. They said not everybody has one, but then when you do have one, there's just a lot of information. So I'll have
Do you
to,
find out ahead of time that you had one?
well, when I went to the man, he said, I have one and my husband doesn't. So I don't know how he figured that out. But that was enough years ago that, you know, we didn't have quite the availability online and Zoom and Skype and all of that. So now maybe there's another way to research that. I hadn't thought about that in years. So now you've got me all excited again.
Yeah, keep us posted what you find out.
Okay, let me,
And does your current friend currently do Vedic readings? Because I'm
I don't think she's doing anything for the public anymore. She's older than me, and that's about as old as the hills. And I think she's basically retired and doesn't really do that. But she would have resources. There are some good Vedic astrologers in the area. So I can ask her and send you a note. Send an email if you don't mind, Aria, and just so I have your current email.
Oh, I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'll ask, her name's Susan, I'll ask Susan for a good astrologer, a Vedic astrologer.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, so are there any other questions? Danny had to leave us, but any other questions? We have good conversations here. Debbie.
Hi, Mary.
Hi. Do you have a question? I saw you unmuted.
Could we talk next week a little bit about soul families?
Okay, why don't we do that? Because we've kind of finished our hour and that would be a whole other topic. So let's put soul families down for 2 weeks from today. How's that?
That sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, next week we'll talk about astrology and then 2 weeks soul family. Good.
That's good. Thank you.
Good connect or good suggestion. Aria.
Logistical question. If you miss these and you want to say, hear the soul family one, do you put them on the Facebook site so you can watch them later?
I think the replay is available, and then we also get a recording. Anna, do we put it on YouTube? Did we do that last time? I can't remember if we or you.
Yeah, we always upload all the videos to YouTube so you can watch all the.
I think last time I wasn't able to access the recording, but you said you found it. So I don't know, did you load it up to YouTube? Maybe, I don't think you did.
I will. I download it. I upload it today.
Okay.
Is it a public YouTube? Because I would love to have just that personal stuff I said edited out if it's going live on YouTube.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. Okay, make a note of that for today's. We'll do it if we can.
Okay, thanks.
We'll do the best we can.
Thanks.
Good. Any other comments, questions, suggestions for another session?
I have a question just on Akashic records. I'm curious if we can go into that with hypnotherapy or if that is totally separate, or yeah, I'm curious about Akashic.
Well, so the Akashic records is kind of an interesting thing because I think the terminology is sometimes used a little too broadly, because I've heard it as a reference to, you know, all the information of the universe, right? Like everything is available there. Well, we know that there are parallel universes. We know that there's other dimensions. And we also know that we are in the middle of all of it, right? So we are not separate from all that is in the universe. So there's no place to go to get into the Akashic records. But when we open our consciousness to, in hypnotherapy, yes, we have a broader view of the universe, right? But if you actually were to immerse yourself into all of that at the same time, you know, like you know, be in it, which we are, but our minds are keeping us focused right here, you know, centralized. If we were to go into it in any big way, we would just lose our minds, because our consciousness wouldn't be able to handle it. So when people say, I'm going into the Akashic records, really what they're doing is going down along a particular timeline and taking a look at what's there, you know, backwards or forwards, or in an alternative timeline, you know, in a what we call an alternative aspect. So for me, the term Akashic records, when people use that, I have to back up and say, how are you defining that? What are you referring to? Because yeah. So, but in hypnotherapy, we're going to be able to access a lot of the information that is out there, absolutely, in a much safer way too. You probably won't lose your mind. Probably. Let's hope not. We don't usually lose people's minds in the courses or in our client sessions. So I hope that helps you, helps answer the question. Anything else for today? Good, you guys. Okay, so we'll see you here next Wednesday at noon to about 1. And next week we'll start getting into some basics of astrology. I teach a whole class. The course is online at teachable.com. And it's a whole beginning class that'll give you everything you need from point A to being able to read a chart and incorporate that into what you do in your profession. So the course was originally created for practitioners like me, you know, therapists, hypnotherapists, healers that want to, you know, not necessarily have a full astrology business, but to have a working knowledge of it so that they can use it with their clients and have some predictions and understand the personality and all of that. So it's all the basics up to reading the, sorry, reading the natal chart as well as the transits. And then, you know, from there, you would go on to take other classes of more advanced material. There's more qualified instructors out there for that. So, but we'll get into some of the topics of astrology and maybe look at some people's charts. So Cinda, be ready. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to say goodbye. And if you have any other comments or suggestions, you can always message me or message Anna. She's my wonderful virtual assistant and helps me keep my mind together. And then we'll just see you next week. So we'll see you. All right. Bye.
Thank you.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Mary Lee.
Yes, thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. Enjoy the sunshine.